So how fast should you go out for 400 meters? How fast should be that first 200 meters of your 400 meters be? You don't want to go out too fast, otherwise you'll die, won't you? You don't want to go out too slow because you won't be able to pick it up for the second half of the race, or will you? Well, I'm going to answer those questions in a minute, but first of all, I want to make sure you subscribe to my channel to make sure you get essential videos and tips on relaxation that are going to upgrade your performance as a sprinter or 400-meter runner. So hit the notification bell and make sure that you're tuned in for these videos. But let's talk about that first 200 meters of the 400 meters. How fast should it be? How fast should you be going out? Well, essentially it's depending on what your PB for 200 meters is as part of the question. So I'm going to answer this question in two parts, and they're both essential. If you're first, let's say, I know basically that first 200 meters should be, well, can range between half a second to 3/4 of a second, or maybe even a second slower than your 200 meter PB. So you're going out maybe half, 3/4 of a second, or a second slower than your 200 meter PB. And this is depending on you as an athlete, because you may be a sprinter athlete, a sprinter 400 meter athlete, which you're a sprinter coming up to 400 meters, and you may be lacking that bit of endurance, or you may be an 800 meter coming down to 400 meters where you have endurance. But essentially if you actually go from about half a second to 3/4 of a second, if you're an endurance person, should be more chance to sustain that kind of pace around. But if you're a sprinter, maybe you're lacking in endurance. Endurance is not your strong suit. Maybe you want to go a little bit slower than your PB. But the other thing I want to make sure that you actually practice it in training. So you should be doing probably 200 meters at race pace and a couple of reps of that in training to make sure that you understand it. I remember as an athlete that when I was training to do my indoor 400 meters, I was able to get down to the track, the indoor track, day before, just to go over with my dad, my coach, to understand what pace I should be going for that first 200 meters. Because as an indoor runner, 200 meters, the first 200 meters as a set is pretty important. So I used to train and just do 200 meter reps in race pace to really kind of fine tune my time. And then I went into the race a lot more confidence. So knowing that, you should be training in that to actually just understand, so you kind of more practiced in the pace that you should be going out. So that's the first part. The second part is how relaxed you are. Relaxation is essential for 400 meter running, because it doesn't matter if you fine tune that race pace in training and you go out at exactly the pace that you've been training at. If you're tight before the race, if you're tight and anxious and you're taut for the race, it doesn't matter that you race the first 200 at exactly the time that you practiced it in. You will die a death in the final 200, and you'll die a death in the home straight, because it's essential that you practice relaxation and that you are not worried about how quickly you should be going out in the first 200 meters. You shouldn't be worried before the race starts how quickly you should be going out. You shouldn't be thinking about it. And when you have relaxation, you instinctively go at the right pace for you. You instinctively go out for the right 200 meter, right 200 meters, the right pace for 200 meters. So you need to make sure that you relax before the race. The essential thing why relaxation as well is important is because it helps with running efficiency and endurance training. Proper 400 meter endurance training and 400 meter proper racing is built on running efficiency. It's built on making sure not only that you're fit enough and you've done the training, but making sure that you're running efficient to last the race. Endurance training is all about running efficiency, not just about the training and the fitness. And if you've got tightness, you have tightness in the jaw, in the shoulders before the race even starts. If you overcome with nerves, you don't feel good, overcome with nerves, then you will be tight. And that is parasitic tension. And parasitic tension is tension in the body that's not focused on you going out. It's not needed. It's sucking the energy out of you. And parasitic tension in the jaw, in the shoulders, is not good for you. The more you have it, the more you're sucking the energy out of you, and the more you are going to have less endurance in you. So it's essential that you make sure you've got the relaxation for making sure that you have running efficiency, but it's also essential to make sure that you have that instinct for how quickly you go out in that 400 meters, how quickly you go out for that first 200 meters. And essentially, you've got to understand as well that there's plenty of ways to skin a cat for you as an athlete. So if you, either way, you kind of vary off the planned first 200 meter time of the 400 meters, that doesn't mean you're not going to run fast. I have an athlete that my dad coaches, and he went out much slower recently in the 400 meters. He did a pedestrian 200 meters. He must have done a second and a half, probably 2 seconds slower than his 200 meter PB. But he ran through, he finished the race about 0.01 or 0.02 off his PB in the 400 meters. Whereas the previous races he'd done the week before, the 2 weeks before, he'd gone out quickly, he'd gone out, but the problem is he was tight, he was really tight, and he came home and he died a death in the home straight. His shoulders were rocking and everything, and he was knackered. But after that PB when he went out with more of a kind of pedestrian first 200 meters, he came home and he said, I don't feel I've worked hard enough. He wasn't tired. And this is it's probably, for me personally, he crossed that line. It's because he wasn't tired, it's because it is why he ran so fast. He's got to understand that he could have probably run that race in a different way to get the same time. And you can do the same as an athlete. Just because you do a pedestrian first 200 doesn't mean you won't have it to kind of bring it back, as it were, on the final 200. So you've got a scope, just a wider range to go for when you hit that 200. And I want you to telling you that to make sure that you stop worrying about it before the race. You shouldn't be worrying about the first 200 meters, how fast to go out, the first 200 meters of the race. You should be relaxed. You should be confident. You should be confident and laser focused on what you want out of that race. And once you have that laser focus, once you're confident, once you're relaxed, you will be loose and you will run fast. So hopefully this video doesn't make it a little too complex for you. Train for it. Make sure you train for that first 200 meters to get that home, that race, that first 200 meters in race 400 meter pace. Make sure you have that in training, but also incorporate relaxation, because whether you go out too slowly or too fast, you have a better chance of running a fast time when you're relaxed. If you like the video, please like, please share, and I'll see you in the next one.